The bright side of addiction is recovery. And recovery begins with hope. Hi, everyone. I'm Neil Scott. And if you're new to our podcast, we welcome you. And if you have been here before, welcome back. And if you're in recovery or know or love someone who is, or maybe you simply want to know more about the recovery process, or maybe you're a bit concerned about someone you know or love who is harmfully using alcohol or any other drug, this is the podcast for you, as we carry the message of hope and the promise of recovery. And a reminder, you can find all of our podcasts at recoverycoasttocoast.org. Recent episodes have featured interviews with former astronaut Buzz Aldrin, NFL quarterback Ryan Leaf, singer-songwriters Bonnie Raitt, Judy Collins, and Rufus Wainwright, and many other prominent people in long-term recovery, plus conversations with everyday people in long-term recovery, sharing their story, their insight, their path. Now, on today's program, we're going to take you to Amelia Island, Florida, for the NAATP National Leadership Conference. One of the keynote speakers was Quint Studer, who has traveled the road to recovery for the past 44 years. In fact, he had a moment of clarity on Christmas Day back in 1982, and he has been sober ever since. Here's a quick clip from today's program with Quint Studer.
Now I realize they went around to talk about their first step, and I thought, well, I never had a DUI, so I can't be an alcoholic because they all had DUIs. So I went to about 3 meetings. They gave me a 12 and 12 because they were out of big books. Came home, opened it up, thought, I don't like this stuff. It's got like God stuff in it. Hid it in my house, and went 30 days without drinking, which meant I wasn't an alcoholic.
Right.
So I went out and had quite a time for 6 months. And then December 25th of 1982, I woke up, came downstairs, and had one of those moments of clarity. Out of the blue, I could look at myself objectively, and I said, this isn't good.
And later on in the podcast, on The Last Word, we're going to feature rock and roll superstar Joe Walsh, who was a member of the Eagles. That's been since 1975. He's a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he's been in recovery well over 30 years. Our website is recoverycoasttocoast.org, and if you would like to help us out financially, you can once again go to our website, recoverycoasttocoast.org, and click on the tab Donate, which is now back online. We had some problems with it over the past couple of months, but they've managed to fix it all up. It's pretty simple to do, and we would certainly gratefully appreciate it. A reminder that our email address is recoverycoasttocoast, and we would love to hear from you. Recovery Coast to Coast is supported by Sundown and Ranch. Now, that's one of America's oldest, least expensive, and most successful treatment programs. They're listed in Newsweek magazine's recent list of America's top treatment providers. Why are they among the best? Well, for starters, they're a nonprofit program. Now, that means, among other things, that they can keep their rates low. In fact, some of the lowest rates in the country. They have been successfully treating individuals, including adolescents and family members, for nearly 60 years. They are one of the most respected addiction programs in the country. They also have an amazing staff that has been together for a long time. They love what they do in helping others to begin the process of long-term recovery. They're well-trained. They're well-paid. And many of them actually went through Sundown many years ago. It truly is a great big family. Sundown takes most insurance plans as well, and if money is an issue, they can work with you to find a way, including a partnership they have with the leading healthcare funding company. Sundown is abstinence-based. It is 12 steps centered, and they don't just treat and release. They provide a healthy bridge back into the family, the workplace, and the community. Their motto at Sundown and Ranch has always been, the patient is the reason we are here. I've referred countless individuals to Sundown, knowing they will be well cared for as they begin their journey into long-term recovery. If you're looking for a treatment program that is all-inclusive, please consider Sundown M Ranch. To find out more about Sundown, visit their website where you can take a look at their treatment philosophy and see many photos of their facility, which is at the mouth of the beautiful Yakima River Canyon, not far from Seattle. Sundown.org, it's where recovery begins. It's coffee time. Coffee and conversation. Today we're going to head down to Amelia Island, Florida, where NAATP, the National Association of Addiction Treatment Providers, was holding their 47th annual leadership conference. Now, during the 3 days we were down there, I met a lot of people in long-term recovery. One of my favorites was Quint Studer. Wow, he's an amazing man. He owns a couple of minor league baseball teams. He's also the founder of a very successful healthcare consulting group. He's a sought-after speaker and a true difference maker. Oh, and yes, he is a grateful person in long-term recovery, a journey he began on Christmas Day back in 1982 when he had a stunning moment of clarity. Let's listen to my conversation with Quint Studer. We welcome you back to Recovery Coast to Coast, America's voice for recovery. We're on the road. We're down here at a place called Amelia Island, a fascinating place. It's not too far from Jacksonville. And I love coming to NAATP because not only do I find old friends that I've known for years and years, but I meet new friends like Quint Studer, who happened to stop by the broadcast location. Quint, welcome to the program.
Thank you for what you do, the difference you make.
Well, thank you for saying that. Thank you for being here. And you've been in recovery how many years? 40?
44.
44, newcomer.
Yes.
Take me back 45 years ago. What was it like for Quint during that year?
Well, I think that year was interesting because I was one of these naive people that didn't think I had a problem. I just got into the wrong relationships and had the wrong job, lived in the wrong community, I was underappreciated. And I just was. But when I was going through my second divorce, she said, "Will you go see a psychologist?" So just to show to her that it wasn't my problem, it was hers, I went to this psychologist.
You were going to prove it to her, right?
Well, he gave me this thing called MMPI.
Oh, yeah, I've taken that.
Personality Inventory. And when he got done, he said, gee, I can also run a thing about alcohol. Would you like to know if you're an alcoholic or not? Of course, I didn't want to know, but I didn't want to look scared. So I said, sure. So he said, there's a 90% chance you're an alcoholic. And I immediately was relieved.
Really?
Oh, yeah, because I thought I'm in that 10%. I didn't realize that he was telling me I was in the 90%. And then he said, can I have somebody call you? Again, I didn't want anyone to call me.
Of course not.
But I didn't want to act like I was scared. So I said, sure. This guy called me, and I thought my confidentiality was broken. Because this guy's talking, I'm thinking, he knows an awful lot about me. Even though it wasn't about me, he's talking about him. So he said, would you like to go to a AA meeting? And I'm thinking, no, not really. And he said, well, so I said, okay, I'll go. But I'm very important. I'm a bartender and a teacher, and I can't go local. Oh, my goodness. So we drove about 35 minutes from Janesville, Wisconsin to Delavan, Wisconsin. I walked in, saw these guys, and I think, what a bunch of losers. Why am I here? And then they went around. Now I realize they went around to talk about their first step. And I thought, well, I never had a DUI, so I can't be an alcoholic because they all had DUIs. So I went to about 3 meetings. And then they went around. Now I realize they went around to talk about their first step. And I thought, well, I never had a DUI, so I can't be an alcoholic because they all had DUIs. So I went to about 3 meetings. They gave me a 12 and 12 because they were out of big books. Came home, opened it up, thought, I don't like this stuff. It's got like God stuff in it. Hid it in my house, and went 30 days without drinking, which meant I wasn't an alcoholic.
Right.
So I went out and had quite a time for 6 months. And then December 25th of 1982, I woke up, came downstairs, and had one of those moments of clarity. Out of the blue, I could look at myself objectively and I said, this isn't good. They gave me a 12 and 12 because they were out of big books. Came home, opened it up, thought, I don't like this stuff. It's got like God stuff in it. Hid it in my house, and went 30 days without drinking, which meant I wasn't an alcoholic.
Right.
So I went out and had quite a time for 6 months. And then December 25th of 1982, I woke up, came downstairs, and had one of those moments of clarity. Out of the blue, I could look at myself objectively and I said, this isn't good.
December 25th.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
And tell me a little bit more about that moment of clarity.
Well, all of a sudden I looked at myself, and it was that moment where I couldn't lie to myself anymore. Now, I'm not sure I thought I was an alcoholic, but I sure knew I was in a mess.
Yeah.
I'd just gone through my second divorce. I was estranged from my parents. I was a bad father to my kids. You know, if you call when you have visitation, they got really good at bars. Everybody knew them because we went to bars all the time. And, people gave them money to go play games. I had nowhere to go. Here I am, Mr. Popularity in my own mind. It's Christmas, and I'm all alone.
Oh.
And I started walking because I was thinking, I need to get hurt. So if I get hurt and I'm in the hospital, people come to me and I can just say, let's start over. But I didn't want to have pain. So that day I just walked and walked. It was a warm day. Next day I went to the travel agent. I had $300, bought an airline ticket to Fort Myers, Florida, because my parents were there, and got on a plane, and I put that 12 and 12 and brought it with me. And
really?
And I couldn't believe as I read it on the plane how much it had changed since the first time I looked at it. And it really, the 12 and 12 really helped me because it just explained it to me better. And the big part I loved was when it talks about we don't understand electricity, but we believe in electricity. So I got to Fort Myers that afternoon, actually early evening. My parents picked me up. You could go to the airport then. I'm spitting blood in a little plastic cup. They looked at me and didn't know what to think. They took me to their condo, and I said, I need to go to an AA meeting. And they didn't know what was going on. I called the AA hotline. That's why I'm a big believer in AA hotlines.
Yeah.
And I told them I'm in Fort Myers. I need to go to an AA meeting. They said, where are you? I said, 677 Winkler Avenue. They said, wow, the Yana Club's about a mile from you. So I borrowed my dad's car, went to the Yana Club, did raise my hand for being a visitor, didn't raise my hand for being a newcomer, but about halfway through, this guy spoke, and all of a sudden I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel I was the only one. So actually I do a lot of travel for my job. So when I was in Fort Myers 3 weeks ago, I went to the Yana Club.
Did you really?
Yeah, sat in the same chair just to reminisce about that. So that's me.
What does recovery mean to you today, 44 years later?
Well, it means I can still learn. You know, I'm still very active in meetings, very active. And I go to meetings because I'm always hearing something. I'm always learning something. And, you know, I write books and I speak a lot publicly, and it's sort of fun because even though if you're in the program, you can tell, but people will repeat all these slogans I've heard in AA. And I keep thinking some CEO is going to be, hey, they love this stuff. And they're going to be, spitting out AA slogans, and somebody's going to say, you're a friend of Bill, aren't you? And they're going to say, Bill who? Bill who? So I think it's remaining teachable and curious about recovery. And I've gotten a life beyond my wildest imaginations.
How long did it take you to work the program rather than just go to meetings?
I think those first 3 months, I was just in this. First of all, I really wasn't sure I was going to stick. I just wanted to stay in long enough to get a relationship back. Because, I was in there. I don't get hung up and you got to do it for you.
You were working Quint's program.
Yeah, don't drink and go to meetings and stuff happens. But I heard things, like I heard all of a sudden resentments, and I had never heard that word before. And so I started putting descriptions on how I thought. And so I think probably, I don't think it's still unveiling itself. But, I think I did a fifth step after, I was going to do it 1 year. And then I thought I should have this stuff nailed. And then I'll come back once in a while for like an oil check. but so I'm still doing it, and I'm still learning, and I just think it's I'm going to leave here on Tuesday after I speak here tomorrow after Tuesday, and I'm going to head back to Pensacola, where one of my friends with 46 years, Marv, is having his funeral service. And Marv moved to Pensacola from Wisconsin to follow me. And so you just meet such wonderful people that give. And Marv's one of those guys, when the hand of AA reaches out, a hand has to be there. So it's the promises, the friends, and say, I've got a life beyond anybody's wildest imagination.
What has been the highlight of those 44 years for you, Quint?
Making peace with my parents and being a good son. Because my parents loved me unconditionally, and I wasn't a good son. And I remember my dad, when I came in the program, I had a lot of debt. And I learned that General Motors, GMAC doesn't, I was calling these people. My sponsor told me to call people and tell them I'm going to pay them back. And it was really going well until I called General Motors, and they said, we're glad you're doing what you're doing, but we're taking your car on Monday. So my dad loaned me $6,000 in 1980, really 83 by then. And I remember paying him back. And it took about 4 or 5 years. And I remember giving him the check and him saying, I don't want this. And I'm saying, you've got to have it. The other thing I remember about my father, out of the blue one time, my father looked at me and said, you know, you used to be a taker, and now you're a giver. And so I think the relationship I had with my parents, the relationship I had with my sister, that when she passed away, I was there. You know, I went from you can't count on me to you can count on me. And of course, then I've been able to have now a marriage for over 40 years.
Wow.
Have good relationships with kids, grandkids, and it's just a life beyond my wildest imagination.
And you recover out loud so others don't have to suffer as long.
Well, I do, because I'm pretty well known in healthcare. So I'm speak at major conferences.
Yeah.
I was at, ACHE, was the keynote American College Healthcare Executives. So I always get up and talk about recovery. I don't break a tradition.
Right.
I'm very sensitive. But if we're going to reduce the stigma, and I was at MD Anderson speaking 2 weeks ago for 2 days. I had 3 different people come up to me because I'm in recovery. One, some of them told me they're in recovery, but another man just sobbed in the hallway, wanted to talk to me about his nephew he's concerned with. So I've really worked hard in reducing the stigma and doing it in the right way. So it's sort of cute when I'm speaking, again, usually non-recovery conferences, and I'll talk about my recovery.
It opens doors.
Opens doors. God comes through the cracks.
Oh, that's marvelous. What do you say to people who say, well, I've tried AA and it doesn't work for me?
Might not. Try something else. I'm not one of these person, but my cousin Al is great, because he'll say, well, tell me about things. And then they'll say, well, this, and he said, how's that working for you? And he'll say, it's not. I did a 7-step meeting I spoke at Saturday. And, I say, sometimes going back out, nobody wants to do it. You hope people don't die. But I've sponsored physicians, and for 5 years, they got to stay sober.
Yeah.
And then after the end of 5 years, some of them go back out. And it's
after the 5 years.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting because they never really thought. But it's amazing when they come back, they don't doubt it anymore. So sometimes you got to go through, who can we judge what you have to go through to get here?
Yeah.
Wish you didn't. So, I just say, how's that working for you?
Yeah.
I try to keep, because I've known some people I love dearly who went back out, but I try to keep the relationship going. Because I want to not look like I'm not approachable or not judging. Because if I look like I'm judging or I'm unapproachable, they're never going to call me to come back.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk in the field and treatment programs of relapse prevention. I call it recovery enhancement. What are you doing today to make your recovery better than it was yesterday?
Well, that's why I'm a big 6 and 7-step fan. Because I said, if I got really good at step 9 and 10, and if you get really good at 9 and 10, if you really start looking, I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Because even though I was sober, I was still having these defects that were causing me pain. but I could manage my defects better now because I'm not crazy. Yeah. But I was still doing junk that I felt guilty about. And I remember looking at the 6th and 7th step and, so upset I couldn't get rid of these defects. And then a guy at a meeting came up to me and gave me an unbelievable suggestion. He said, you might want to read the 7th step as it's written in the book Alcoholics Anonymous, because I was going to do it on my own. Mm-hmm. And I say the 37th step prayer every day. And I think, because if I get rid of these defects, I'll do 8 or do 9 and 10 less. However, some of my defects, though I don't want them, keep me very empathetic to people, because, I think we don't attract people when we're judgmental.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Quint, it's an amazing story, and I'm sure it's going to touch many people who are listening right now. And all you have to do is pick up the phone, the AA hotline.
Well, that's what saved me.
Yeah.
I still remember that guy's voice. I used to go to meetings in Fort Myers when I got there, listening for that voice, because it's a voice of love. It's like you're being verbally hugged, I would call it.
The voice of love. Quentin, thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation I had with Quint, and as a special treat, I'm also going to share his keynote talk, which was called Rewiring the Brain and Becoming a Get-To Leader. I'll put a link to the talk in the podcast notes. It was a keynote address delivered to the NAATP Leadership Conference. By the way, I want to remind listeners of this podcast, if you would like to tell your story of recovery, regardless of the path you've chosen, as long as you've been in continuous recovery for a year or more, drop us a note at recoverycoasttocoast@comcast.net. We can set up either a Zoom call or a regular phone call for that matter. Coming up next, today's last word, the great Joe Walsh, who has been a member of the iconic rock group The Eagles since back in 1975. And, oh yeah, he has been in long-term recovery for the past 32 years. We'll hear the last word from Joe Walsh in just 30 seconds.
She has always been your baby, but when your daughter got into drugs and alcohol, she turned into a stranger. What do you do? Where do you turn? Contact Sundown M Ranch. Sundown's nationally recognized youth treatment program guides young people back to a life free of drugs and alcohol. All treatment is gender-specific and directed by caring certified professionals in a safe environment. You can get your daughter back and get to know her again. Go to www.sundown.org to learn more.
And now, as promised, here is the great Joe Walsh.
If you have problems in your life that are directly the result of alcohol or whatever substance you're doing, you have a problem. And at some point, you work for it, it doesn't work for you anymore. And very subtly, without you noticing, whatever you're on will convince you that you can't do anything without it. And then it's got you. I chased it for 30 years. And it wasn't working for me. And I thought, oh, well, obviously I'm not drinking nearly enough. And that wasn't it. I needed help. And the hardest thing to do, the phone can weigh 30 pounds, pick up the phone and ask for help. Because there's life after addiction, and it's good.
It is rock and roller Joe Walsh who gets today's last word on Recovery Coast to Coast. And a reminder, if you want to listen to the NAATP keynote talk from today's special guest, Quint Studer, I'm going to place a link in the podcast notes. I hope you enjoy it. Well, that wraps up this edition of Recovery Coast to Coast, the national podcast. If you've enjoyed our podcast, and I certainly hope you have, please share it with others. You can find all of our podcasts at recoverycoasttocoast.org. And if you'd like to get in touch, our email is recoverycoasttocoast@comcast.net. And please hit the subscribe or follow button. It's free. and you'll be notified the next time we publish a podcast. And again, if you'd like to help us out financially, that would be lovingly appreciated. Please click on the Donate tab on our website, recoverycoasttocoast.org. And if you're considering treatment for a friend or a loved one, or maybe even yourself, be sure and visit NAATP.org/AID. That stands for the Addiction Information Directory. It's a listing of those treatment programs that adhere to the strict ethical guidelines. And one of them, of course, is Sundown M Ranch, but there are a lot of others in the country as well. We'd like you to check that out. And join us next time for America's Voice for Recovery, Recovery Coast to Coast, the national podcast. And another shout out to our sponsoring organization, Sundown M Ranch, where recovery begins, sundown.org. I'm Neil Scott, reminding you to stay healthy, live in gratitude, and be kind to others. Remember, the bright side of addiction is recovery. Pass it on.